All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going on a little journey into two completely different worlds, but they're both exploring these fascinating systems that are on the hunt for a hidden order, something that kind of governs our reality. One is super ancient and physical, and the other, it's modern and totally mathematical.
So just think about this for a second. How on earth could sticking a tiny needle in your foot possibly help a headache? It just sounds wild, right? And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, how could a sacred text from the 7th century have some kind of complex mathematical code that you can only find with a modern computer? They seem like they're from different universes.
Well, the connection is actually really deep. It taps into something fundamentally human, our constant, relentless search for hidden patterns. You know, for a deeper logic that's kind of humming just beneath the surface of everything we see.
So let's start with our first map. This one is an ancient chart of the human body itself, the meridian lines of traditional Chinese medicine. The entire system, and I mean everything, is built on this one core concept, qi. And by the way, it's pronounced qi. It's basically understood as the vital life force, the energy that animates all living things. And in traditional Chinese medicine, this energy isn't just floating around randomly. Nope. It flows through a very precise network of invisible highways in our bodies.
And listen, this is not some new idea. We are talking about a system that's been mapped and refined for over 2,500 years. The first major text on it appeared way back around 200 BCE, and it's been evolving for centuries, all the way to the point where it's actually being integrated into modern healthcare today.
And this isn't just some vague concept of energy, you know? The system is incredibly specific. It identifies over 361 distinct acupoints. Think of them like little access gates along those energy highways that are used to influence the body's balance.
So, how does it all actually work? Well, the logic behind it is beautifully simple. Think of it like a traffic jam. A blockage happens in your qi flow, and that causes a problem, like pain or an illness. So techniques like acupuncture stimulate a very specific point to clear that blockage, get the energy flowing again, and bring the body back into a state of harmony. Now, while science can't exactly stick a probe in you and measure qi, it has found plausible reasons for why acupuncture seems to be so effective. Studies suggest it might work by stimulating our connective tissue, or by triggering our body to release its own natural painkillers like endorphins, and even by affecting the nervous system. So the map works, even if we're still trying to figure out the exact geography.
Okay, now let's do a complete 180. We're going to shift from the body to a book, and from ancient practice to modern technology. We're about to see that exact same search for a hidden map, but in a totally different world, the secret code of the Quran formula. This is a 20th century theory, and it was pioneered by researchers who were using computers to analyze the Quran. And what they claimed to have found was this, just astonishingly complex mathematical architecture woven right into the fabric of the text itself, something they argue is impossible for any human to replicate.
And at the very heart of this entire, incredibly complex theory is just one single number, 19. Proponents claim that this prime number is the key, the mathematical signature that unlocks the whole hidden structure of the Quran.
And we're not just talking about a couple of funny coincidences. Supporters of this theory point to over 5,200 statistically significant connections. I'm talking about things like word counts, the number of verses, even how many times individual letters appear, all aligning in perfect multiples of 19.
Now, as you can probably guess, this is hotly debated. On one side, you have believers who see this as absolute proof of a divine design, like a supernatural signature. And on the other side, you have critics who argue it's just a classic case of human pattern seeking, that if you look hard enough in any large text, you can find patterns by cherry-picking the data. So, we've got an ancient map for the body and a modern code for a text. How in the world do we bring these two together? Well, it turns out they share some really fascinating common ground. I mean, when you just lay them out side by side like this, the differences really jump out at you, don't they? One is an ancient practice to heal the body. The other is a modern theory to prove divine authorship. One is microcosmic and all about experience. The other is macrocosmic and totally abstract. But looking at it like this also starts to show you what they share. And here it is. Here's the shared essence. At their core, both are trying to decrypt reality. Both are searching for harmony, for balance, and for order. Both of them completely reject the idea that what you see is all you get, and they both provide a kind of map to help us understand complexity, whether that complexity is inside our bodies or inside a book. They're both fundamentally holistic.
Maybe the best way to see them isn't as opposing ideas at all, but as two completely different paths that are leading up the exact same mountain.
Their ultimate goals are different, for sure. The meridian lines are a practical tool for the body, right? The proof is in how you feel. The Quran formula, on the other hand, is an intellectual tool for faith, and its proof is found in a calculation.
Ultimately, the methods couldn't be more different. One is ancient and tactile, something you feel, and the other is modern and digital. But the motivation? The motivation behind them is exactly the same. That deep, deep human call to find some kind of logic in all the chaos.
So, in the end, they really are just two different languages. One uses the language of energy and the body, the other uses the language of numbers and text. But they're both trying to explore that same fundamental connection to a hidden architecture that makes our world tick.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to just think about for ourselves. In our own lives, whether it's in our health or in our deepest beliefs, what are the hidden patterns that we're searching for? The ones that give us a sense of meaning and order. What maps are we trying to draw?